Welcome to the Audacity Awards 2023 for the most questionable, morally reprehensible, tasteless and tone-deaf marketing from fast fashion brands this year. Boy oh boy have we had some great entries this year. Who will come out on top? Let us know your predictions in the comments below now. Sponsored by fossil fuels, overconsumption and lack of greenwashing regulation. Basically, I've devised a rating system for the worst news stories that have come out of fast fashion this year. So it's across 3 different categories. The categories being tone deafness, unsustainability and shadiness. It's an incredibly scientific scale, goes from 5 to 1, 5 being the worst and 1 being the, well, best, but I mean, they don't really get ones. Then I ranked all of these news stories that I've been talking about throughout the year to see which ones are actually the worst of the worst of the worst, and I thought it'd be fun to make a video about it. So here we are. I'll just keep talking into this like it's a microphone and we'll just pretend, okay? Oh, and by the way, a lot of these things I've talked about way more in depth in previous videos, so I'll be linking those up here as we go through so you can add them to your queue, watch them later if you want to go a bit deeper into these issues and into the ethics and sustainability of these brands. That would be a great thing to do. But there are also a few newcomers, especially recent stories and things that I haven't really touched on so much in the past, so let's get into it. So without further ado, at number 8 we have H&M with 10 points. H&M is the second largest retailer in the world and it's had massive criticisms about its production model, about the materials they use, about greenwashing, about their supply chain. But the reason that they've made it onto this list for 2023 in particular is to do with their take-back scheme. This has been revealed by several reports to be incredibly ineffective and, in essence, greenwashing. H&M's take-back scheme is, according to them, created to close the loop and address the fact that only 1% of clothing is recycled back into new clothing, suggesting that the clothes that you drop off with them will be recycled as part of what is called closed loop fibre to fibre recycling. But they don't actually have any visibility over what happens to these clothes once they are handed off to their partners, who are going to either put them towards rewear, reuse or recycling. They don't give any stats about how much of what's donated goes to each of those bins. In fact, there's very little information on the whole. So in the summer of this year, a report by this Swedish newspaper came out. For this piece, the journalists handed in 10 garments which were like new into H&M's collection boxes with air tags attached so that they could track their movements around the world. What they found was that most of these clothes ended up shipped around the world to the global south, to countries that cannot handle the scale of waste that they are receiving. The total distance traveled by these items was 5,792 miles. So it is not the case that most of these recovered clothes are recycled into new clothing. At best, they are downcycled into things like insulation. And if that wasn't enough, there was another report that then came out from the Changing Markets Foundation called the Take Back Trickery Report. In this, they conducted a similar study, air tagging 21 items and returning them to various take-back schemes, not just H&M, but including H&M. Again, 3/4 of the clothing was destroyed, left in warehouses or exported to Africa. This study also included Zara, Primark, Nike and other brands, so it definitely speaks to a larger problem within the fashion industry of these take-back schemes that don't actually work. So for these particular antics, I've rated H&M a 5 for shadiness, because clearly their take-back scheme is completely misleading. And then I've rated them a 2 for tone deafness, because it's not like this campaign is particularly insensitive to the things that are happening in the world right now, not in ways that other brands' stories are, which I'll get onto in a minute. And then I gave them a 3 for unsustainability, because clearly just pretending to have a working take-back scheme to solve one of the biggest issues of the fashion industry, which is the end of life of these products, is nowhere near good enough. So they ended up with 10 overall. But they're not really doing anything way above or beyond what other fast fashion brands are doing. This is kind of just business as normal. In fact, they are actually making steps towards sustainability. They work with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for Circular Solutions, for example, and they also got a 70 in the Fashion Transparency Index this year, which is actually really high, one of the highest of all the brands that are included in there. So that's pretty good. In the number 7 spot, we have Zara, and we particularly want to highlight the campaign that they've just launched, which has completely reignited the calls to boycott the brand cancelled once again. Because yeah, calling for a Zara boycott is actually not a new thing. The creative direction for this campaign seems to have been taken from none other than the horrific Israel-Palestine conflict that continues to rage on, having claimed over 17,000 lives in Gaza as I film this. The images show a model surrounded by rubble, dust, and destruction, as well as what appears to be dead bodies wrapped in white body bags, which is reminiscent of traditional Muslim burial attire. This has rightly so led to massive backlash on social media, and this actually brought back to the surface a conflict from back in summer 2021 when a Palestinian model came out saying that they had been the victims of some Islamophobic attacks from the head of design at Zara, Vanessa Perlman. So it's no surprise that Zara is scoring 5 for tone deafness. This is completely unacceptable. And then it's scoring 3 for shadiness and 3 for unsustainable practices.
Since filming this, Zara have now come out with a new statement and have removed the campaign, saying that it was conceived in July and photographed in September without any kind of reference being made to the conflict in Palestine. Unfortunately, some customers felt offended by these images, which have now been removed. However,
similarly to H&M, Zara is a fast fashion brand whose entire business model is based on trends, overconsumption, using harmful materials, a lack of commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, that usual stuff, sadly. It received a 50 out of 100 in the Fashion Transparency Index, which is higher than the average, but that's not really saying a lot, and transparency is only the first step to creating a more sustainable and ethical supply chain. Just like H&M, the brand rating app Good On You has rated both of those brands not good enough. They have bested H&M in the Audacity Awards this year, however, because of the sheer audacity of this campaign and how horrific it truly is. At number 6, we have Pretty Little Thing and their collaboration with Naomi Campbell. This is another one that I've made a whole video about, but essentially Naomi Campbell, who is potentially the most famous black model of all time, has partnered with Pretty Little Thing to bring out a collection of fast fashion clothing. It did not go down well, and she responded to the backlash by saying that had she been white, the reception to this collection would have been overwhelmingly positive, and that she received this criticism from environmentalists for the collaboration because she's black. When actually the backlash was just that she was partnering with Pretty Little Thing, which is owned by the Boohoo group, which is notorious for completely ignoring workers' rights. She seemed to think that sustainability would come from allowing young designers to come into the fashion space and giving them opportunities to design, and that this somehow would make fashion more sustainable just by itself. But this made no sense, because she hired 2 young black designers to spotlight their talent through this collaboration, but that didn't actually lead to the collection being any more sustainable because she was still using the same supply chain, the same materials, all of it. So PLT gets a 4 for tone deafness, it gets a 5 for sustainability, because Naomi has a massive following, a massive impact. She could have taken this opportunity and made something that was actually genuinely more sustainable and advocated for sustainability in fashion. But she just chose not to do it, so she gets a 5. And they only get a measly 2 points for shadiness because they are proudly a fast fashion brand. There's this video on YouTube called The £5 Dress, where they literally say, like, this is everything that's so great about being a fast fashion brand. We're so happy and proud to be fast fashion. So at least they're owning it. They only get a 2. So that means that Pretty Little Thing and Zara are tied. Now number 5 is Primark for another celebrity collaboration, this time with singer Rita Ora. So apparently 2023 has just become the year that celebrity fast fashion collaborations take over. Rita Ora has said that this collaboration came out of a personal connection that she's had with the brand, all about how when she was growing up, she used to go there all the time and it was a big part of her life and all of this. And then she said she's made it with all of us in mind, which is clearly not true, because she hasn't made it with the garment workers making the clothes in mind. She hasn't made it with all of the people that are going to be suffering the worst effects of the climate crisis in mind. So that's just not true, is it?
And I wanted to do that for my fans and for the future generation.
But what gave this a 5 for shadiness was that Rita Ora had actually released her own activewear brand that was built on sustainable values before. It's called Humans Being, and they use natural and recycled materials. So she was definitely aware of the issues in fashion and how to make things more sustainable. But the really weird thing about it, and the thing that makes it a 5 on the shadiness scale, is that she seems to have completely wiped like all memory of humans being from her page. Once she started promoting her Primark content, she was posting loads about that, and then if you scroll down her feed, there's just nothing about humans being, as if she's just erased it, because clearly Primark is a bigger opportunity for her. So yeah, shady. Primark is again rated not good enough by Good On You, and they are, like the others, still churning out collection after collection of cheaply made clothing, scoring just 40 in the Fashion Transparency Index. For this system, Primark beat Zara and PLT due to the sheer shock factor of the fact that Rita Ora seems to have totally wiped any mention of humans being from her social media feed. It's super shady, and of course sustainability is totally missing, so that gets a 4. And it's a little bit tone deaf to assume that there won't be backlash to something like this, so that gets a 3. Next up, in spot number 4, is Boohoo. This is thanks to the new Panorama documentary on the BBC that just dropped recently.
I'm undercover at the headquarters of fast fashion giant Boohoo.
And now, it's boom time.
It revealed how they're breaking all their promises to make their clothes fairly and ethically. An undercover reporter got a job at Boohoo headquarters in Manchester and secretly recorded their conversations, seeing how staff were under pressure from the brand's executive chairman, Mahmoud Kamani, to drive prices lower and lower for suppliers, making it impossible for them to make enough profit to provide a decent life for the workers' families, never mind to think about sourcing better materials. So Boohoo has bagged 5 points for unsustainability and 5 for shadiness. Their Fashion Transparency Index score is only 24, which is way below the average of 36. And it has repeatedly made claims and promises as part of their agenda for change that it has just not followed up with and not actually taken seriously. And now for the top 3. In spot number 3, we have TEMU! I haven't spoken much about TEMU on my channel yet, but they have been popping up more and more on my feed this year. Some people are saying that they are going to be rivaling Shein for ridiculously low prices across fashion, homeware, electronics. The website seems to be absolutely packed full of so many different things at absolutely ridiculous prices. But the reason that they're on this list primarily is because they also have a class action lawsuit being raised against them for secretly collecting users' private and sensitive data and tracking them, so when they leave the site it's collecting information such as their names, addresses, phone numbers, biometric data and banking information. Loads of people have been sharing their personal experiences with TEMU online, where after they started making purchases from TEMU they would see some fraudulent activity on their card and things like that. Because of the seriousness, I've given them a 5 for shadiness. And they also get a 5 for unsustainability because their prices are massively encouraging overconsumption. When you can get 20 items for the price of 3 anywhere else, of course you're going to buy more and more and more stuff that you don't need, that's probably going to be made in really terrible ways, in terrible working conditions, so you're not going to keep using them, they're going to fall apart. And they get a 3 for tone deafness because they are a relatively new business, and to have blown up with this kind of business model right now when what we really need is for all new businesses and for existing businesses to be transitioning towards a more sustainable way of doing things. It really reads like new oil fields when we're supposed to be switching to renewables, you know? Now, onto the silver medal position, we have, drum roll please, Skims! Skims. Skims and their founder, Kim Kardashian. Now, if you thought that the tone deafness of the Zara campaign was bad, have a look at this.
The Earth's temperature is getting hotter and hotter. The sea levels are rising. The ice sheets are shrinking. And I'm not a scientist, but I do believe everyone can use their skill set to do their part. That's why I'm introducing a brand new bra with a built-in nipple. So no matter how hot it is, you'll always look cold.
She literally acknowledges the climate crisis and then she makes it a gimmick, a butt of a joke to sell bras that people do not need. These bras are also made from 86% nylon and 16% spandex, so synthetic materials. As for Skims' overall Good On You rating, it beats Zara, Boohoo and Primark by being awarded a we avoid rather than a not good enough. The brand provides very, very little information about where their clothes are made, how they're manufactured, working conditions, what they're doing to reduce emissions or prevent waste. Basically nothing. So it scored 5 for tone deafness and 5 for unsustainability. Now I've also given it a bonus point just for sheer ridiculousness. The sheer audacity, which is obviously what this award ceremony is all about. The fact that when you watch the ad, you then have to Google, like, is this legit? Is the Kim K Skims ad legit, or is it some kind of weird April Fool's joke even though we're in November? Like, is this really what Kim Kardashian thinks the world needs right now? And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The winner of the Audacity Awards 2023. It's Shein! Feel free to disagree with me on this one, by the way. This is by no means a completely scientific process, so do let me know in the comments if something else stood out for you this year, if I've totally missed something. But Shein has been the creme de la creme of fast fashion for a while now, simply due to the absolutely ridiculous volumes of production, adding as many as 10,000 new items every day. The way that the offers and discounts bombard you every time you visit the site is just fantastic, and this year in particular, a trip that they hosted for influencers absolutely blew up social media. This was essentially propaganda for Shein. So they sent 6 influencers to China to tour some of their facilities and for them to make content to basically debunk the myths that have been circling around Shein from actual real journalists and the media. For context, in an audit of nearly 700 of their factories, 83% of them were shown to be operating with major risks. And a Channel 4 documentary had already revealed that their workers were working 18-hour days on as little as 3p per hour. But never mind that, because these influencers will clean it all up for us and we'll be back in the public's good books, right? Wrong. One influencer in particular, Danny DMC, was totally destroyed in her comments when she posted content from this trip, and she went on a lengthy crusade to defend herself. This story highlights some even bigger issues about things like why do we trust the word of influencers over independent journalists, and also things about how Shein has kind of used these influencers as like a shield, so that if there was backlash, we would attack the influencers rather than attacking Shein, which is literally what happened. This campaign, mixed with their ongoing business model, the fact that Good On You rates them a we avoid, and they only received a pitiful 7 out of 100 in the Fashion Transparency Index, all has led to them claiming this top spot. Also, Shein really deserves to win because there's been other stories that have come out about them, such as them partnering with Forever 21 in literally the fast fashion collaboration of nightmares. But let me know which of these stories really captured your attention this year. Which of these brands do you think deserves the Audacity crown for this year? As we head into the new year, I really hope we'll see less of these ridiculous stunts, especially with things like cracking down on greenwashing and advertising and new regulation that will be coming in soon to make brands take responsibility for their waste. So looking forward to all of those things. I hope that you've been able to steer clear of these tone deaf, unsustainable and shady brands this year, and you found some really great small ethical independent businesses that you love. Long may that continue, and until next time, stay kind and I'll see you later. Bye! That's me signing off for tonight. This has been the Audacity Awards 2023, and a massive shout out to our sponsors, fossil fuels, overconsumption and lack of greenwashing regulation.